And we're rolling.
And here. Hey guys, welcome back to Telltale. I'm Emily.
I'm great.
And today we are going to be talking about Edgar Allan Poe's The Black Cat.
I dressed for it.
Yeah, I did. I have cats. That should count.
Yeah, but they're not black.
No, they're not. They should have borrowed my friend's black cat. But anyway,
I tried to tempt you. My niece she's taking rescued cats and
yeah,
you know, working with them and then finding homes for them. And she posted this really, really cute black cat online, and so I shared it onto mine, and I was hoping you would see it and start bugging Joe to get it. But apparently he went to somebody who wasn't too nice to it. At Thanksgiving, she was complaining about him.
Oh, that's so sad.
Yeah, I
don't like it.
Gail and I didn't have allergies so that we could have gotten it, but oh well.
Yeah, I have allergies. I love cats. I have allergies, and I live in misery because I love them so much. But yeah, so I have this collection of Edgar Allan Poe stories, and this one it's a nice one. I really like the illustrations in this particular book. Mm-hmm. Let me get back to my page here. But yeah, cool. There's some really great illustrations in this particular
Does it say who did them? Should somewhere.
Illustrations by Mark Summers.
Okay.
And an introduction by Neil Gaiman.
Oh.
So, yeah, it's a really nice one. I just really like the typography in it. There's some great illustrations. I'm trying to find the one for the black cat. Blah, blah, blah.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. Here we go. There it is. It's a full color one.
Oh, cool.
I like it. It's very gothic.
But that would work just as well in just black and white.
Yes, it would.
You can see it was done in black and white, and they just kind of color tinted the background.
Yeah, it's very woodcut style. It's got really nice detail. So I particularly like this version from this selected poems and tales. Mm-hmm. But yeah, so for the synopsis of this, there's a guy, he and his wife have a little black cat. And he loves that cat a lot, but he starts, unfortunately, falling prey to alcoholism and depression. And as he becomes more and more of a drunk, he becomes crueler and crueler. And eventually one day he gets so angry because the cat was, being obnoxious in his eyes because he was very, very drunk, and he rips out its eye. Mm-hmm. And so eventually he's so annoyed by this cat, and he's always coming home drunk, and everything's just awful, that he hangs the cat from a tree and kills it. But after he does that, he kind of has like this whole, the abuser cycle where it feels so regretful for having done it. He just kind of goes back into his more mild state and becomes a more mild drunk for a period of time. But then he meets this other cat who is also missing an eye and has like a little white patch on his chest, and he's like, oh, this is so similar to our other kitty, I'm gonna bring it home. And his wife just absolutely loves the cat. She loves having it again. And then one day he comes home and he's really, really drunk and gets angry again, and he tries to kill the cat with an axe. His wife stops him, so he splits her head open with the axe and kills her. And he goes and walls up her body in the basement. And, there's an investigation, and he gets kind of cocky because there's no way anybody can figure out where he walled up his wife, that he takes them investigators down into the cellar, and, he's tapping on the walls and saying, yeah, this house is solid. There's no way I could even hide a body in these walls if I wanted to. And then the cat meows because he accidentally walled it up with his wife. He didn't realize. He thought the cat had run away after he had killed her. But the cat meows, and the police dig out the body out of the wall, and he gets arrested.
So the whole story is told from the point of view of him being on death row waiting to be hanged.
Yeah, pretty much.
That's how it starts out.
Which is really ironic, because that's how he killed the first cat. And over time, like, the second cat he gets, like, the white patch around its neck looks like a gallows, or looks like, where the former cat was hung, and there was, like, this joke that he and his wife had at the beginning, where, like, black cats are just witches who came back and are disguised as cats to, cause mischief and stuff. But yeah, it was just a really interesting story. it kind of makes me sad because I don't like animal cruelty at all. Like that is so, like, this isn't my favorite Edgar Allan Poe story because I hate thinking about animals and people getting hurt. Like, I don't enjoy that. Especially kitties. I love kitties. But, yeah, it's a very popular classic piece of literature.
Oh, yeah.
And it's just kind of interesting because the hero is the cat.
Well, I liked it precisely because this guy's such a total asshole and you hate his guts.
Yeah.
You know?
You love to hate him.
He's cruel to everybody. He kills his wife and doesn't, the way he killed her, he was swinging at the cat and hit his wife in the skull because he didn't know she was there. So it was basically an accident, but does he call the police and explain that? No. He just walls her up. The guy just doesn't give a damn about anybody or anything. He deserves to be on death row. And I think that's what makes this story really work, is that it's told from his point of view, but through the whole thing you're thinking, man, this guy's he just needs to die.
You're messed up.
And this story was part of the brilliance of Edgar Allan Poe, is that nobody had written anything like this at the time this was written. I think 1843 or something. Fairly early work, but nobody had gone to this kind of gory detail of putting an axe into somebody's head, or dealing with those psychological feelings of guilt and stuff, and dealing with this deep of a character study of such a despicable person. Poe was the first to dare to do that, and I think that's part of Poe's genius, and that's why I think this story is one of his best. Even though I've mentioned before how I hate some of Edgar Allan Poe's stories, this one, it's just brilliant. It's
your narrator is very unsympathetic, and you can't relate or sympathize with him at all. So you do kind of like. I did like that he got caught in the end, being just a cocky asshole.
Yeah, while you're reading this thing, you're just waiting for this guy to get caught.
Yes, you want him to, and I think it speaks a lot to the complexity of addiction. I don't think we always have these heroes or anti-heroes who tend to have really positive attributes. Like you think about Sherlock Holmes was. What, a heroin or crack addict or something? Yeah,
he was a cocaine addict.
Yeah, he had a severe addiction, but he still had enough redeeming qualities that he wasn't a character you loved to hate. You started appreciating him and his weird mannerisms, and could sympathize with his addiction. In this one, you have the polar opposite, where his addiction causes his mind to change, his depression causes his mind to change, to the point where he is no longer the loving, caring husband he used to be, and becomes really a cruel, awful person. So there's nothing to sympathize with at all.
Right.
You're just so hard set on hoping he gets caught and killed, But, yeah. That's all I had there.
Okay. Yeah, so I love this story. I've put it on our list of the greatest ever, and because it is, I think it, this one, along with stories like Fall of the House of Usher and Pit and the Pendulum, and what are some others that are not coming to mind right now?
Mask of the Red Death.
Mask of the Red Death. I mean, these are stories that are going to go down forever as some of the best horror stories, at least in all of literature, and they've been highly influential.
Yes, they are pivotal pieces, so they deserve to be honored.
And it's just interesting how, you got to remember, psychology as a science didn't get started until late 1800s. When you're talking about the 1840s or earlier, when authors like Poe and some other authors get into such deep psychological studies, without there being a science of psychology, that's pretty remarkable.
That really speaks to the author's understanding of people. I really appreciate that. I kind of think that Poe must have been some kind of empath or something, where he could just really read people well and feel with them when things were hard.
But some of the greatest literature from back then, the authors were capable of that, like the Brontes. I've never read any of their works, but what I keep hearing in reviews is how deeply they understood the psychology of the characters.
Yes.
And the characters were not necessarily good people, but
especially
they're memorable because of how deep of an psychological understanding the author has of those characters. And Poe is another one like that. He gets very deep into the psychology, so that even people you hate suddenly become very compelling.
Yes, I think that too also speaks to people who, as authors, are willing to embrace the shadows, that inner darkness that I think people have. Because I don't necessarily think, I think people want to be good and like want to do good in the world, but we all have those deep dark shadows of that is just the worst of the worst, I think, dwelling in us personally. There's a lot of duality to humans. So I think it was just the ability that those authors had to kind of delve into themselves and what would I do if I were, you know, if I embraced this darkness? What would I do if I embraced this kind of lifestyle? What would I do if... And being able to ask those questions and build this story based on that alone, or just observing not just themselves, but other people who are like that, or who they do observe at the bar or whatever, who are already alcoholics or, you know, cocaine addicts or whatever. Just being able to spend time, read people and read themselves and be honest with themselves about that inner darkness is a huge challenge, I think, that a lot of authors face. You don't see a lot of that anymore.
Right. And of course, Poe was an alcoholic, and so he was digging deep into his own self and being honest about a lot of his own feelings. Because
he did have that huge guilt and shame complex around his alcoholism. He was very open about that, and actually most of his stories touches on that to some degree or another. He has a lot of alcoholics in a lot of his literature, or addicts of some kind.
You're right, what you know.
Yeah. So, I mean, he used that as a form of therapy, I think, which a lot of authors do. Yeah. And it just really helped him, I think, understand how bad he could get, and really just kind of talk himself through those problems and those processes and his greater fear of becoming that kind of person. And I kind of saw that in The Black Cat too. You could see Poe be afraid of becoming a person so cruel he would hurt a kitty. I think that's a really bold thing to do, especially directly in when you're trying to reconcile your own addiction issue. So I really appreciate that about Poe, for sure, that he's not afraid to kind of prod and poke the bear of his own issues. To write really compelling stories and just process his own fears. I think that's really, really well done. Bold of him. Very bold.
So this one is a classic. It's on our list of the greatest ever. And you should look it up if you've never read Poe. If you've read other works by Poe but never read this one, you should track it down and read it.
He has very poetic writing.
Well, yeah, that's his name, right?
I know.
I've always thought that. You know,
I really like it.
The word poetry comes from before him, but his last name is Poe, and he was a brilliant poet that just kind of all works out perfect.
I know. But I like his writing style, because even though, like, I pretty much reiterated the whole story to you, the way he writes is so compelling and poetic. Like, he makes his inner darkness sound like a beautiful tragedy. I really appreciate that about his writing. So if nothing else, like, read it just to read how he explains himself. Really well done. Love his work for that reason.
So that's all we got about this one, I think.
Yeah, that's pretty much all I've got.
Except to say that Telltale will be doing a project involving this story. Watch for more news about that coming up as we proceed. We're just at the very beginnings of the project, but I think you'll like it when we are finished. Yes,
we're very excited about it. So yeah, like, subscribe, comment, let us know what you think of The Black Cat, why you like it, why you hate it, and we will see you next time.
Bye.
Bye.